Starts now.
Great to have you here on this Friday of Take Two with Jerry and Debbie. Along with Debbie Georgiani, I am Jerry Usher, and we know that you're going to give us another great program with your lived experiences, your insights, and your wisdom today. It's day 5 of our series on Schools Week. This is a Celebrate Catholic Schools Week. There's also a Discover Catholic Schools Week in November every year, and so we decided we were going to tackle high schools, grade schools, elementary schools, colleges, universities, not just Catholic, but from a wide variety of angles. And today, Debbie, we just sort of grab all of the different topics Monday through Thursday and throw them into a pile and have sort of an open forum about education.
Yeah, kind of an all about education unscripted. And it has been just a glorious week because of you. Thank you so much. We learned a lot. We grew. We changed a little bit, had new perspective. And I'll tell you, getting a new angle on things, having that new perspective really helps us to conduct our lives better, to plan for our families, for our children and our grandchildren, to ask the right questions. It's just been a great week, but we're not done yet. So don't get started with your weekend yet. Help us out. Call in. It's all about education. We want to hear anything and everything you have to say about elementary school, private school, charter school, homeschooling, public school, Catholic schools, what's happening on the high school campuses. How about dating on the college campuses? Anything you want to talk about, we want to hear from you. And we still have a lot of social media comments that we've got to get to from the entire week. So that's pretty exciting. Here's the number, 833-288-3986.
If you're involved in Catholic school in any way, maybe, as Debbie said, maybe you're a teacher at home. Maybe you are homeschooling. Perhaps you've been doing that for many, many years. Maybe the pandemic has kind of thrust you into being a teacher and doing homeschooling, and we can talk about that. The topics that we've had so far this week are Monday, what grade would you give Catholic education?
Ooh, that was
Tuesday, Tuesday was how you made your decision between public and Catholic schools for your kids or for yourself. Wednesday, what's the state of our high schools and colleges? Yesterday, what's the talk on campus? And today we're just doing, as Debbie said, an all about education, kind of like unscripted. So maybe you've got a favorite teacher, or your child is a, what do they call them, superstar at whatever such and such school, and you want to brag on your child a little bit. We can do any and all of these things today at 833-288-3986.
Or maybe you listen to the nightly news and you're just a little bit disturbed of what you hear about how schools are still closed for in-person, for in-person classes. It's all gone virtual, how the kids are being affected. I just saw something on the news last night, Jerry, about how suicides and depression is just skyrocketing amongst the kids, junior high, high school. That's dangerous, folks. That's dangerous when that's happening at that high of a level, at that early of an age. And they were talking about, when should they go back in person, for schooling, and then, is virtual working. They're saying that kids are getting so down about it. They're really feeling ripped off, and they're going into their rooms and they're spending much more alone time, which is not healthy. So maybe you want to talk about that. This is unscripted. It's all about education. So let's talk about, I don't know if you saw that news report last night, Jerry. It was very disturbing. Did you see it?
I did, yeah. Yeah, and that's been kind of building for a long time. And, this would be humorous if it weren't so horrific and serious. And that is, it took a pandemic to get kids to want to go to school. Because you know how the old joke
Right.
is always,
Nobody
I don't
wants
want to go to school. I don't want to go to
snow
school.
day. I need a snow day.
Yeah, and there's snow days this year. They were already home. So, yeah, it's been absolutely just an upside-down, topsy-turvy year. And who knows when things are going to return to normal. But we want to hear what you are doing to adjust, how your kids are doing right now, how you as parents are doing, how you holding up through all of this, getting your kids to school. Maybe you've got some kids in junior high, another one in high school, a kid away at college. Maybe you've got a young one that you're homeschooling. This has caused parents to put a lot of balls in the air, Debbie, and juggle them and try and keep everything in right order. So 833-288-3986 is your number.
Some of the news stations were actually interviewing some of the really little kids with their parents. And, they're so sweet, so innocent. And they're holding these signs, saying, I want to go back to school. I want to be with my friends, stuff like that. But they were talking to some really young elementary age kids, and they were speaking from their heart. They said, we really need to go back. It's not just they want to go back, they need to go back. They recognize that. And it's just heartbreaking because so much is happening, with, what's going on with the vaccines and, how can people get vaccinated and, the teachers and what's going on with them. And they're nervous about going back. And it's really, wow, it's really a mess, actually, when you think about it, because there's such a risk level involved, right, Jerry, about reopening, and I think nobody really wants to take that responsibility and say, okay, let's do it, because it's really unfortunate.
Yeah, it is. It really is. We're talking all about education today. So anything that is on your mind or your heart, please feel free to join us by telephone. You can email take2@EWTN.com. We're live streaming the video on Facebook and YouTube. You can comment there. You can text the letters EWTN to 55000, and maybe might be a small data rate there. Our good friend Timoteo in Ohio, he was watching on Facebook this week, Debbie. He says, I am a rarity and did not have a Catholic school experience. I went to public school, and my Catholic education came in the form of Saturday morning CCD. Mm-hmm. I think the reason was Mom did not have enough to cover the cost of Catholic education. Mm. That's a major obstacle for a lot of families, is the cost.
Yeah, the cost. Yeah. That's why parents are really getting creative with, scholarships and those tuition tax credits and all sorts of things. You can sponsor, a child to have a private education. So it's really interesting, and parents are getting good about doing that. And I know the schools are helping out, and at the diocesan level, I know they give some training on that as well. It's really good that it comes together. I did hear another. Did you see the follow-up news report that Catholic school enrollment is up all around the country?
I didn't see that, but it's no surprise, really.
Well, because they are trying really hard to do in person. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's really interesting. So it's up. That's a good thing that's come out of all of this, right? So we want to hear from you. Fill up those phone lines. Don't get started with your weekend yet. I'm going to keep saying that until all the phone lines are lit up. 833-288-3986. You're listening to kind of an unscripted, all about education on Take Two with Jerry and Debbie.
Are you able to stand tall, knowing God's purpose and plan for your life and living that out? Many people need a little assistance in getting to that point. That's why there's Stand Tall Life Coaching. Our growing team of certified coaches can assist you in dreaming big and living your best life. Learn more today and sign up for your free consultation at standtalltoday.com. That's standtalltoday.com.
Hi, this is Trent Horn from Catholic Answers, and a lot of people ask me, how do you pray? I like the ACTS formula, ACTS. First, we adore God, realize He's God, we are not. We're contrite, we ask Him to forgive us of our sins. We're thankful, we thank Him for the blessings and trials He's given us. And then we make supplications and ask Him for help in our own lives, doing all of this so we can grow closer to Him and spend eternity with Him.
EWTN's cathedrals across America and the Diocese of Greensburg, Pennsylvania invite you to a celebration of apostolic succession as they welcome their new apostle and shepherd, Monsignor Larry J. Kulik. From Blessed Sacrament Cathedral, the Mass of Ordination and Installation of Monsignor Larry J. Kulik as the 6th Bishop of Greensburg, Thursday at 2 p.m. Eastern, here on EWTN TV and Radio Essentials.
Good to have you with us on Take Two with Jerry and Debbie. Thanks to Michael, Jeff, and Ryan, the show team here, the affiliates for carrying the program. I'm going to out myself and say one of these days I'm going to pull down my Christmas lights and put them away. Because Christmas is past, and I only bring that up because, folks, Lent is almost here. It's hard to believe. I think it's coming early this year. And from EWTN Publishing, there are a couple of great books we want to point out for you. Please listen carefully. We have to draw near to God now more than ever, and EWTN is the source for helping you do that. How about Making a Holy Lent, 40 meditations to prepare for the church's holiest season? Father William Casey turns our attention to Jesus in brief reflections on topics like the real presence of Jesus in the Eucharist and the role of the Blessed Virgin Mary in every healthy prayer life. And then there's also a book by his confrere in the order, Father Wade Menezes, The Four Last Things. We need to be meditating on death, judgment, heaven, and hell. And Father Wade focuses on the differences between the particular judgment and the last judgment, the Church's teachings on heaven, the chief characteristics of the risen, glorified, and transfigured human body, the existence of hell, and growing nearer to God. So Make a Holy Lent and the Four Last Things, available now at EWTNRC.com. Buy Catholic, okay? Shop EWTNRC.com.
I cannot believe it. There are a couple open phone lines. What is going on, you guys? You've had a great week, full phone lines, and now you wait till Friday and you say, oh, I'm just going to listen. No, come on, participate. We need to hear your voice. You're part of the Take Two family. You can say anything you want about education. Well, almost anything. This is kind of an unscripted. We need to hear from you. Ryan is waiting. He's got his hand right on the button there on his headset, and he can't wait to say, hi, welcome to Take Two, 833-288. 3986. Can you tell it's Friday, Jerry? I'm kind of punchy.
Well, let's see what's on the minds of our callers. We do have those lines open if you want to get on board. Beverly called in first, so she'll be first in Wichita, Kansas, listening on Alexa, and a first-time caller. Beverly, great to have you for the first time on Take Two with Jerry and Debbie. How are you?
Hi, Beverly.
I'm great, thank you.
Good. So what are your thoughts?
I have a story that kind of demonstrates very simply the benefit of Catholic education. It's regarding my granddaughter when she first started going to school. I was at work, and a group of my coworkers were discussing the things that their children and their grandchildren were learning at school. And they had learned bad words, and there was problems with hitting and fighting, and so I listened to this for a while. And then I said, you'll never guess what my granddaughter learned yesterday at school. And so they all looked at me, and there was this silence and this kind of a gasp. And I said, well, she was at school, and they were outside at recess getting ready to go in. And in the distance, they heard a siren. And their teacher stopped and said, children, let's pray a Hail Mary for whoever is being affected by this siren, that our mother and Jesus will guide them and take care of them. So the whole class stopped, and they all said a Hail Mary, and then they went ahead with their day. And the people I was talking with, they just didn't even say anything. They were just completely speechless. And to me, that just shows in a very succinct way that their Catholic education is so important.
Go ahead, Deb, if you have something.
I was just going to say, we mentioned that at the beginning of the week, Beverly, the freedom that these children have in being able to live out their faith in a Catholic school. I couldn't agree with you more. And you're in the home of the diocese that does it so well with Catholic education in Wichita, Kansas. You're very blessed. But I just want to...
we are extremely blessed because we have a stewardship diocese, and it is just a wonderful blessing for the people that want to send their kids to Catholic school.
Yeah, it sure is. And, let me share something with you, because I've done a lot of work at the parish level that had Catholic schools attached to it. So we were always there on campus, and we would help out in the classroom at times and stuff like that. There's still going to be the childhood things, bullying and, and some things that are not so good. Okay, that can happen, that can arise. But when you can incorporate the high morals and the virtues and the things that we should adhere to as Catholic Christians. And you can do that at an early age with the children and not be so restricted by what is in the PC culture on how to say things, when to say things. Should you bring in God? Shouldn't you bring in God? You can do it so freely in a Catholic environment. I think it helps the kids to mature and grow in a very wholesome way. I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, you're going to still have those childhood things that happen, but I think you can learn from those things and educate the kids in a much better way on a Catholic or Christian campus. That's my belief anyway. What do you think, Jerry?
Well, I remember you will too, Debbie. We did a show on this, Beverly, one time 2 or 3 years ago. Maybe I can't remember how long it was. But about, are you perhaps the only person who stops and prays when you hear an ambulance? Because I do that all the time, and I know a lot of us do too, because when you hear that ambulance, that rescue unit, the fire truck going somewhere, somebody is in serious trouble and they really need the help of and the grace of God at that time. And so it's a beautiful lesson for the kids because they can learn that they may be the only ones stopping to pray for that situation at that time, and it gets them out of themselves. They learn tenderness and mercy and care of others, putting others before themselves. So I say, fantastic. This is a great, great thing that school does.
Yes, I agree.
Well, good.
It was a great lesson for them. They had never done that before, and so I think that was something that made an impression on them.
And you telling your coworkers about that, Beverly, they'll take that. That's a seed that's planted in their minds and hearts now, and they'll probably take up that practice and maybe even start having their kids do the same thing. So beautiful.
That's right. And it's hard to do that at work, but something like this is just a small way that you can intervene with something that is holy.
Yes, for sure.
Yep. Absolutely. Beverly, you were a first-time caller today. You're such a delightful soul. Will you call us again sometime?
Yes.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for gracing our day and our conversation today. That's perfect. You did such a great job, and we loved hearing from you, so that's wonderful. Jerry, I agree with Beverly. I love Catholic schools. I really do. I think we really need to put more effort, especially if we're going to a parish that has a school attached, maybe see what we can do to volunteer and help out, right?
Indeed. A lot of ways to be a part of the young people's lives like that and to help in not only their academic formation, but their, like you said earlier, moral formation, religious formation, and so on.
Yeah.
Well, we have a line open there. In fact, a couple are open still here on Take Two with Jerry and Debbie. We're going to go to Mark and Paul here in just a moment. But we are talking all about education today, kind of wrapping up this week of Schools Week here on Take Two with Jerry and Debbie. So if you've got a comment, a thought, an experience, maybe a suggestion you'd like to share, anything about schools or education, 833-288-3986. And Mark is next in Jackson, Mississippi, listening on 107.9. Another first-time caller. Hi, Mark. Good to have you with us.
Hey, guys. Thanks so much for taking the call. I appreciate you guys.
Sure.
So I just wanted to get something out there. You said specifically that it was random school-related. So this is my random school-related comment and really, I hope, a thought-provoking suggestion. So my wife is a teacher, and she's recently transitioned to a Christian school. It's not a Catholic school, but it is a Christian school. And she's everything that Beverly, I think it was Beverly, was the previous caller, everything she was saying about how you can stop and pray and all that makes a huge difference. But here's one of my challenges, and this happens in the public schools, but it's not necessarily something we're comfortable with, and it's the word sex. So here's my challenge to people. When I have a 7-year-old and a 9-year-old child, so the concept of talking to kids about sex, they are talking about it at school, even at the Christian schools. They're already talking about it at 9. If we think they're not, I think we're deluding ourselves slightly. Now, what they're talking about is hopefully still innocent and still not knowing, but what we've got to cultivate in schools and at home, and I think a key area for any education for a Christian is that discipleship happens at a number of places, but no greater place than at home. We need to be having conversations with our kids, and the person who, I forget his name, the gentleman who was screening calls, asked me what that would look like, and that's an interesting question to try and have a discussion about sex in school. We have a lot of freedom in the private school sector in terms of what we teach, but the only way that I can see any kind of discussion that is going to impact a child is both at home and at school is with a transparent humility that Christ actually calls us to. So if I'm going to talk to my kids about lust, that actually is something that you can talk to them about even when they're 7. You don't need to use graphic words. You don't need to go beyond what they're doing now. But you can start the conversation to say, lust is a death trap. Be careful of it. And this is where it's affected my life. This is where it's done this. The challenge, of course, is that if teachers are going to put themselves out there as transparent, we're going to have to do a whole lot to keep that accountable and to keep, there's a risk with transparency. But the end result of being transparent, especially in things like sex, if I talk to my kids, I want to tell them that lust has been something that has been the hardest thing for me to overcome in my marriage. Everything that I did as a child followed me into marriage. It's not something there that the Christ has not forgiven, that I haven't worked through. But wow, I wish I'd kept it pure. I wish I had. And that's something, I didn't have a dialogue with any of my teachers. Nobody ever spoke about sex. We had the practical things. They're teaching very, 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 forgive the word if it's South African. You can hear I'm not from the States. But dodgy practices in terms of what sex is and what safe sex is. And they're hearing all of this. How are we teaching them differently? And that's really my challenge to people is whether your school's doing it or not, your education for your kids, that discussion about sex has got to happen. So that's just my thought. I just wanted to put that out there. It's just such a critical thing in my life.
Well, Mark, thank you. And I feel very, very blessed knowing that you are raising your kids, your 2 kids, like you said, in a very moral way with regard to these very important issues. I mean, young people, especially very young, don't need to be taught about sex. It just is not necessary. It's not important. Their young minds and hearts are really not at a place where they can absorb that and critically think through it all. Even if they're being told, wait until you're married and all of the beautiful realities about human sexuality. It's the parents' job to do in the home. Like you said, moms and dads have a grave moral duty to know what their kids are being taught in school. And when parents do it even, Debbie, I think it's got to be age appropriate, not just age appropriate, but it has to be according to the level that each child is able to absorb and understand and kind of take in and be able to understand. Not every 10-year-old is at the same level. Not every 15-year-old is at the same level. So I think, nothing good can come from young people, learning about and engaging in sexual activity until they're, old enough to make the right choices.
Well, and like I think Mark was sharing so beautifully about that they are going to learn it in school. The kids are talking about it. And so you don't want to wait for your child to come to you and make some comments and you're like, where did you hear that from? And then you have to quickly educate. There are a lot of resources out there, though, which are really great. One of the folks that I just recalled just quickly is Jason Everett. He's done a great job with junior high and high school. He's written many books, Theology of the Body for Teens, Discovering God's Plan for Love and Life. That's just one of them. So there's resources out there. And I always encourage parents, get these resources ahead of time when your kids are still toddlers. Okay, so you're ready for those real, wonderful conversations we can have about how we grow up in human sexuality and all that. And it's just in a very wholesome, healthy, holy way. And so I so agree with you, Mark, that we really need to equip parents and teachers to have the proper discussions. But Mark, I just want to say real quickly, I believe you said you're from South Africa. I absolutely love, Jerry knows it. I love your accent. If I'm ever dying, Mark, will you call me in the hospital? Because I love your accent, okay?
I appreciate you guys. Thank you so much. And yeah, bless you guys. I appreciate everything you do.
Well, thank you, Mark. And
Thank
you
you,
have
Mark.
you've been a great example to a lot of listeners who are tuned in right now to Take Two with Jerry and Debbie. And we have a line open if you would like to occupy that line that Mark was on in Jackson, Mississippi. The number is 833-288-3986. You can also comment on the EWTN Catholic Radio Facebook and YouTube channels. You can email us, take2@ewtn.com. But I think a great call by Mark and great calls so
Loved
far
it.
today, Debbie. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. When phone lines are lighting up, that's great. We have Ann is next and John, and we have a special guest. Do we have a special guest coming on, don't we?
Well, perhaps after we pause here in just less than a minute.
Yeah. Okay, so Ann, hang on. And John and the others and everybody's commenting on social media. Now you're all taking part. Okay, see? Thank you. You guys are awesome. All right, you're not getting started with your weekend yet. You can do that after the show, right, Jerry? There's plenty
right.
of time to enjoy the weekend.
Yeah, and lines are often not open on this show, so that must mean that God wants you to get through. If something's on your heart right now, you're feeling, gee, I have something to contribute to this conversation all about education, then make that step and make the call. 833-288-3986. This is Take Two with Jerry and Debbie and you. Thanks for listening. We're going to get to more of your calls in just a moment.
Raymond Arroyo, Dr. David Anders, Father Mitch Pacwa. The leading Catholic voices are on the largest Catholic media network in the world. You're listening to the EWTN Global Catholic Radio Network.
Now there's a fast and easy way to get in touch with EWTN. The EWTN Everything number. Call 1-800-447-EWTN to get the latest information on programming, special events, pilgrimages, and more. Our EWTN Family Viewer Services representatives are ready to help you with whatever your needs may be. The EWTN Everything number. 1-800-447-EWTN. EWTN.
60 Seconds with Archbishop Fulton J. Sheen.
If anyone is coming from God with a revelation for our reason and the strength for our will, reason is going to impose certain tests, and these tests are three. And they're tests that can be verified by reason and by history. First, whoever comes should be pre-announced. 2, he should work miracles in attestation of the fact that he is a messenger. Third, nothing that he ever teaches or reveals to us should be contrary to human reason, though it may be above it. Those are 3 tests. That's the standard. That's a measuring rod. First, we say anyone who comes should be pre-announced. After all, brides pre-announce their wedding. Automobile manufacturers tell us when a new model would appear, and if God is going to send someone to this earth, certainly the least that God can do is to let us know, I'm sending someone.
The people you know and trust are on EWTN.
Hi, this is Cy Kellett. Later today on Catholic Answers Live, we're going to talk about eugenics and contraception with Angela Franks. Catholic Answers Live, 6 p.m. Eastern on EWTN Radio. Now, back to Take Two with Jerry and Debbie.
Well, no matter who you are or how old you are, you have something to say about education because you've been through it yourself. Your kids have been through it. Your grandkids. We're talking all about education today. You can talk about any of the topics that we presented earlier this week or anything else that's on your mind at 833-288-3986. And before we go back to the telephone calls, we have EWTN General Manager Jack Williams in studio with us. Hey, Jack.
Hey, how are you guys?
To what do we owe the honor?
Well, first of all, congratulations on a great week. Great theme for the week. It's just been spectacular. We've gotten so much tremendous feedback. So congratulations and kudos to you, your producer Michael Birchfield, and the whole team for putting together a great week. But I wanted to kind of put my plug for Catholic schools in with a little anecdote that I think is quite amazing. When my late wife Susie and I were dating, we were often in the company of her best friend, who's a dear friend of mine now, and a wonderful person. But you could not meet a more 100% secular human being if you tried to create one in a laboratory, right? So she eventually got married as well, and their oldest child had a bad experience in kindergarten in public school. So in first grade, they put this child in a non-faith-based private school, and they experienced a lot of the same difficulties. So St. Louis obviously has a rich Catholic heritage. So when she went into second grade, they put her in the local Catholic school. Mm-hmm. And so as the year was rolling along, of course, in second grade, these students are all preparing for their first communion. So her child came home and said, I really want to prepare for my first communion just like all my classmates are. So she went and talked to the pastor and to the principal of the school, asked what would be involved in all of this happening. So they got their child involved in that program and into the preparation for First Communion. And she, as a conscientious parent, wanted to know everything that was going on. So the next thing you know, she found herself in RCIA.
Wow. And
not only did their child receive their First Communion with the rest of their classmates, but she entered the church at Easter Vigil of that same year, and then her husband entered the church 2 years later, based on off of her witness. And now, this woman who would be right at the top of my list of people I knew that would never be Catholic is now holding Catholic Bible studies in her home. It's just, you never know. God cannot be outdone in generosity, and you just never know the lengths to which he'll go to touch people's lives. And Catholic schools are a big part of that.
Well, Jack, that is an amazing story, and praise be to God on the outcome of all of that for that wonderful family. The interesting thing about your story, this real life story that you know them and you're friends with them. If you take a look at the Catechesis of the Good Shepherd, the Montessori-based program for religious education, they have found that because of the works, they call them works, where they're learning about their faith through setting up these beautiful parables to come alive, right? That Jesus spoke about, that come alive in these beautiful works. They noticed that parents were absorbing that, Jack, and they were coming into the church, and so this wonderful byproduct of this religious education program that's in the Catholic schools. It's so amazing that parents were actually so interested. They were actually doing those elementary school works with their children and coming into the church. So another wonderful thing about setting up the environment that draws you in, and that's what you shared about with your friend, and I've noticed in religious education. So there's so many things that can happen with having that environment of a Catholic school. Jerry, what do you think?
I just love the story. I mean, obviously, the one person that comes to mind is St. Paul, and you can't, compare conversion stories. But in the Bible, the first Christians thought Paul, would never probably be the last one ever to become Catholic too, Jack. So I'm glad you shared this with us. I think a lot of people will be inspired by that.
Yeah, absolutely. Can I bring the next caller on?
Sure.
Just because I love saying the name of that town. Next up is Ann from Yakima, Washington, listening on Sirius XM Channel 130. Ann, you're on with Jerry and Debbie.
Thanks, Jack.
Thanks, Jack.
Hi.
Hi, Ann.
Hello. I just had a story. Sometimes I get off of work and I get to go to noon mass, and our church is connected to elementary Catholic school. And in September, well, actually, our high school had summer classes. And this September, all our Catholic schools started up with appropriate, protection and everything else. And our Catholic schools have been in session all this time. And so I just wanted to say it's just a kick to kind of go past that playground and the kids are playing and I'm going to mass and I'm going, well, look at you guys. And they're just having a ball. And I think that it's just so important. They just look so happy and getting to be with their classmates. And then I had a comment about praying my children went to a different elementary school that was downtown Yakima, and their teachers always had them pray. And it is so funny because I'll be driving with my daughter, who is an adult, and she'll hear a siren. She says, Mom, we need to say the Hail Mary. And I'm going, what? She says, someone's in trouble, Mom. And I'm going, okay. So it it's a lifelong thing with them. And it's so positive. It's so awesome. So thank you for giving me this chance, and I really appreciate your show. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for the call. You didn't have you can stay on if you want, Ann, but I'm just my
that's
thoughts.
Okay, I'll just hang up. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
Thanks, Ann.
Yeah, I mean, Debbie, a sight that we have seen thousands of times in our lives, and that is kids, playing on a playground, public school kids, Catholic school kids outside playing on the playground, enjoying themselves, having a great time. That obviously, like so many things, probably got taken for granted, and you can understand why the kids look so happy and joyful right now. And I just want to say, Debbie, you know this individual as well, Bishop Joseph Tyson of the Diocese of Yakima. Not to compare bishops to one another, but he's the kind who, if there's any open window or door to get the kids back into school, he's definitely going to do that. He's a very vibrant, sort of forward-thinking bishop, great supporter of Catholic radio. So I'm just happy to hear that story. That's fantastic.
Oh, yeah, it's a beautiful story from Ann in Yakima. And I just wanted to say real quickly, going back to Jack's story about his friend that came into the church because their child was in Catholic school. Jerry, again, we're in this world right now, folks, where they're trying to push God out of everything. And look, when God is in our midst, when God is among us and in our environment, and we are free to be who we are created to be, right? Then things come alive, okay? And people search out God and people grow close to God. I just want to stress it again, that it really concerns me that we're taking God out of everything. And then what's going to happen? What kind of environment are we going to have? We need that rich, healthy, holy environment so that we can grow. I just have to say that because Jack's story really hit me hard because I'm thinking, wow, it's getting tougher and tougher these days to bring God into things.
It is. And the old saying, when you kick God out, guess who's coming to dinner? Guess who's going to just barge right in there. All right. Thank you again, Ann in Yakima. John is in New York, listening on Sirius XM 130. Hi, John. Good to have you with us on Take Two.
Hi, John.
Hello. Good afternoon. I respect teachers in education, but in this country, there's a lot of problems with education. And one that we can fix real quick is to get teachers and students in the classroom. Outside of the COVID time, there's just too much time away from school. There's no justification at all for teachers and students to be off 10 weeks in the summer, a week in the spring, a week in the winter, and then all these other holidays. My wife's a teacher, and every time I turn around, she's off. There's just too much time. They have too much time away from school, and I think it's to the detriment of the students. My wife's from France, and they don't have this much time away from school. They have to be in school, and this school day is too short, 6.5 hours. I think we could do better.
What do you think about that, Jerry?
Well, yeah, I think absolutely, John. I agree with you. The kids have to be in school. I mean, different countries do it differently. But you're right. I mean, especially with this COVID thing, I mean, we're all looking for a way to get the kids back in school. First, one week you hear it's going to happen. The next week you hear it isn't going to happen. I heard something from the CDC about a week or so ago that they're now saying that, kids for their overall mental health benefit and education need to be back in school. So it just seems to me there's so many conflicting messages out there that it's hard to keep up with them. I don't know,
and that's just referring to what's happened with COVID. But you're saying in general, John, that the school structure of the day and everything, there's just too much time off, and then during the year, we in Arizona, John, in case you're interested, we have semi-year round school, so the kids they always seem like they're in school all the time. But I will tell you something about that, John. I've worked on I volunteered on a lot of campuses, being a director of religious education, and we used to have the ability to go on to a lot of public school campuses and to spend time with junior high and high school. And some of the kids used to really they looked really burnt out. They looked tired. They were just, they almost had, it was like school fatigue or something. So I've often said that I think our whole education system, I just think sometimes needs kind of to be up, have a boost about it and to take into consideration everything that's going on with kids nowadays and in their home and things like that. It's like a comprehensive approach to really serving the needs of the child. What do you think of that, John, before we let you go?
No, I respect your thinking on the matter. I appreciate teachers. I appreciate what they do. But I just think, again, 10 weeks off in the summer here in New York, and then, a week here, a week there. It's just too much time. It's just too much time, away from school. And I think we'd all be better served if they'd be more in the classroom. And I just think the teachers union, especially in the public schools here in New York City, they're too powerful. They get whatever they want. And I just think we'd all be better served, and I respect educators. This is not teacher bashing.
Right.
It is not.
We understand.
I just think we'd all be better served if they'd just be in the classroom a bit more. That's all.
Yeah.
And thank you both for your efforts. I appreciate it.
Oh,
Thank you, John. Thanks for your insightful comments. We appreciate that so much. John in New York, 833-288-3986. This is the wrap-up of Schools Week. Yeah, he does. No, he does. All of our callers do, and we're so grateful for John's participation in the program. 833-288-3986, all about education today. Tom is next in Topsfield, Massachusetts, listening on the Station of the Cross. Hi, Tom. Welcome.
Hi. How are you doing today?
Pretty well, Tom. How about you?
I'm doing great. An earlier caller, about 15 minutes ago, mentioned that you have to teach your children younger about stuff that's going on in school, about sex and that sort of subject.
Mm-hmm.
I made sure when I learned that, I made sure that when my kids were either in first grade or kindergarten, that I spoke to them. I started talking to them about intimacy, about God's plan for marriage, God's plan for them. And I wanted to get it out to them before the teachers get it out to them, because even in elementary school, they're pushing the LGBT agenda and a bunch of other things. In seventh grade, my older son had come to me and said, "Dad, I wasn't supposed to be in the cafeteria, and I saw them giving out condoms to eighth graders."
Oh.
School nurse was showing eighth graders condoms and distributing them, and that's required. That's from what I understand, it's required because apparently the state doesn't want them to be misinformed. But the sad thing is, Planned Parenthood is behind this distribution and behind the sex education program in our schools. I told my son, I said, you know what? They say those condoms protect you, but they don't. Here's where they fail. And I said, under clinical testing or, with machines and stuff, I said, these things fail at least 5% of the time. That's 1 out of 20. My son did research when he was in either 8th grade or freshman year, and he found out that the condoms that Planned Parenthood distributes to middle school children fail 40% of the time. And the birth control pill has a very high frequency of failure, too. These Planned Parenthood is setting these children up to get pregnant and to come to them to fix the problem.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Well, and Tom, I just want to jump in here real quickly because I want to make sure Jerry has a chance to comment as well. I just want to say thank you so much for preparing your children early and letting them learn at home where they're supposed to learn instead of on television or in school or from somebody else's parent. You don't want that to happen. So thank you for doing that. And the other thing too is research, and all parents should do that. They should go and double check everything that the schools are teaching, whether it's Catholic or public. I mean, you have the right as parents and just to learn about it. And like your son did, and you did the research. And so you can really see that there's hidden agendas to a lot of this that are really not good for us at all for us as Christians. And so I just want to say thank you for doing your work on that and preparing your children. And I pray that other parents that are listening right now, please take the time. There's tons of resources out there, and you can be fully equipped to talk to your child. What do you think, Jerry?
Wow, Tom, great call, great insights, and thank you again, as Debbie said, for what you're doing with your kids. You know, you're able to teach them at home in a safe environment where we talked about earlier, age-appropriate information about this. You talked about intimacy, talking about God's plan for marriage. You know, these are things that they're going to clash with what they're getting in a public school setting with regard to, you know, how to put a condom on and so forth. They just need to be taught basic things like boys and girls are different, but they're complementary. I mean, so many times, Debbie, how many times will a young sibling come up to mommy and say, "Mommy, what's that in your tummy?" You know, and that's an opportunity to say, well, mommy and daddy love each other, and God is giving us this beautiful baby. As Jason Everett said, you referenced Jason a little bit ago. He's often said there is no condom for the heart. There's no condom for the heart. And we're seeing shattered lives, depression, suicide. You know, unfortunately, too many boys just use the girls, you know, and then, like Tom said, want to resolve the problem, and that's usually through abortion and stuff. So again, it gets back to parents knowing what's being taught in schools and regulating that in the home.
Right. It's feeding the abortion mill. It's setting the children up for failure, like you were saying, Tom. Real quickly, I just want to say, because you made me reflect back. When my son was in public school, I had a really wonderful neighbor who said, you need to get into the school and speak to the principal and find out when they're going to start talking to your kids about human sexuality. And I did. And I asked for the curriculum. And I got it home and I read it. And I was, you know, a little bit shocked, to say the least. That was a long time ago. But I sat down with my son and we went over everything before I opted into allowing him to even go to any of these classes. Now, here's the difficult part. Some of our kids say, well, Mom, Dad, you can't, you know, opt me out of these classes. I don't want to be embarrassed. All my friends are going to it. It's really a difficult position. That's why it's so important for parents to take that lead role. Right, Tom?
Oh, yeah. My sons are also telling their classmates, hey, that's wrong. This fails, and here's how it fails. That fails. Here's how it fails. They're spreading the truth to their classmates. And, you know, the kids will rebel against the teachers just because it's their nature. But they, when they're armed with the truth, it's really important because without our children evangelizing other children, we're going to lose the war.
Yep, we agree. Yeah. Tom, thank you so much for the call today. We needed to hear your call, and I think it's a good wake-up call for so many of us, our parents and grandparents, right, Jerry?
Yeah. Thanks, Tom, so much. And keep listening and be a caller again anytime. We'd appreciate that. Want to draw your attention to a program that airs tomorrow and every Saturday afternoon at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. It's Register Radio. It's a spinoff of the National Catholic Register on the radio. And hosts Jeanette DeMello and Matthew Bunson are joined by Jerry Bradley to discuss President Biden's Blue America, and Carrie Gress, who will talk on toxic femininity. So many of these important topics come your way on Register Radio Saturdays at 4 Eastern Time on many of these same EWTN stations.
That's going to be a good show. Okay, Susan is up next in Naples, Florida, Sirius XM 130, first-time caller. Hi, Susan. Welcome.
Hi. Thank you very much. And thank you for talking about this during Catholic Schools Week. The point I wanted to bring up, 2 points actually. One, I taught in a Catholic school early on in my career, and currently my daughter's teaching at a Catholic school. And everything that's been said is spot on in terms of how the children grow spiritually and the sense of family. But I do just want to shout out to the teachers. It's, missionary work almost. They are paid so very little in so many areas of our country. And yes, they have a week off at times. But I'm reflecting back on my daughter's teaching during this year of COVID and how very difficult it has been having kids virtually learning as well as kids in the classroom in front of her. She also has 3 children at that school paying slightly reduced tuition. And I just think people need to be a little more aware, and I certainly encourage the parents of Catholic school children to support the staff and make them feel that they're grateful for all the hard work these very, very dedicated teachers do.
Mm-hmm. I have to jump in because I completely agree with you, Susan. If you listen to the show, you know that I'm completely supportive of teachers. I think they're amazing. I always say on the show that I think there's going to be a special place for them in heaven, especially when they enter into their job with, like you said, that ministry spirit. I agree with you, especially Catholic schools and even Christian schools that are attached to the church. I remember working so many times, and I would see that these Catholic school teachers, I really felt, I didn't know what their paychecks were, but I felt they weren't getting paid enough to do the things they were doing. I used to see them there at 8 and 9 o'clock at night. I saw one Catholic, I still tear up when I think about this. As one Catholic school teacher, a male, was teaching this young boy how to shoot the basketball and he was there so late. I said, "Go home, you guys." And he wanted these kids to succeed. And you're right. They have that, that they love to evangelize. They have that ministry heart. It's a beautiful thing. And we do need to support them. And we can volunteer. We can just help them out. Hey, do you need anything? You want me to cut something? You want me to paste something? You want me to staple something? Just to give them a little break. And I'm right with you, Susan. But I think that's true across the board. I think so many teachers, they're just... they're not appreciated enough. And maybe if we, like I said, have a comprehensive approach to reforming all this, we can make things better for everybody that's involved in the education system. What do you think, Jerry?
Yeah, well, we need to go back to when there were priests and nuns mostly staffing schools, give them a huge, a round of applause. It's really a shortage of priestly and religious vocations that so many lay people now have found it necessary that they take these jobs. And like you said, they do so very, very willingly and lovingly and not just for a paycheck. They do it because it's a calling. It is a vocation. Parents are entrusting the care of their kids' immortal souls to the teachers and administrators. And so I think, and you mentioned a lot of teachers going above and beyond the call. How many of them even put their own financial resources into buying materials and resources and the glue and the paper and the scissors when the school budget says, you know what, we don't have enough money for that? How many of the teachers step in and use their own resources? So, Susan, you are absolutely right on. And because of time, we're going to end the show on this call. Anything else, Susan, you wanted to add? This was a great way to end this week of shows.
I just wanted to end with, I finished my career at the college level, and there is a whole contingent of wonderfully Catholic Christian kids that somehow, when they're in college, fall between the cracks, and it breaks my heart. And it's because of geographics, it's because of logistics. It's hard for them to get to church, but that is a whole other area that I wish we could change and revisit to help those college kids remain faithful.
Oh, I couldn't agree with you more. They did a lot of theology on tap, and all these other groups had kind of been brought up to help with the young college-age kids, but we need to do much more in that area. Couldn't agree more, Susan. Thank you so much. Jill, Rhonda, Bill, Mary, Dave, we're not going to get to you, but there's always the next time we meet, right, Jerry?
And there's always email, take2@EWTN.com. Thanks again to Michael Birchfield, our producer, for suggesting and putting this week of shows together. Jeff Burston, social media. Ryan Penny, our call screeners. Thanks to Jack Williams, general manager of EWTN Radio, for his impromptu appearance today. And Debbie, we're going to pray with our listeners on Monday.
Whom or what are you praying for? That's our very, very popular show and powerful show on Monday. So until Monday, have a beautiful and blessed weekend. St. Joseph, please pray for us.
Amen.
You've heard of the incredible shrinking man? This is Dr. Ray Gurendi.